Hello, viewers. My name is Adam.
I'm Aaron.
This is Seeking Me Productions bring you another movie review.
So we got to watch another entry into the Apes saga. Well, series now.
It's a real franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we're talking about. It's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Now, when it comes to the Planet of the Apes franchise, originally with the original movies, was it back in the 60s or back in the 60s, I was aware of them, in my childhood, but it wasn't really the movies that gravitated me towards anything that's in the science genre. I was always a Godzilla fan or a Universal Monsters flick, but with this new franchise being under the helm, I'm really interested in what they're doing with this franchise.
Yeah, like they had a cultural foothold since the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
and like a lot of reruns, weekend Sci-Fi Channel when they used to air those movies regularly.
Pretty much.
Tim Burton had a chance at the trying. He had it back in 2001.
it was a thing.
That's wild. And in 2011 was when Fox, 20th Century Fox at the time was able to decide to bring back that franchise to a new light. This time, instead of just using practical makeup, they wanted to
Let's just make it all CG.
Motion capture technology at the helm with wedded digital. And
lo and behold, surprise, holds up far better than those costumes.
And it's not in trying to reboot a franchise that's been long decades before. It takes talented writers and actors and basically a care with the whole film crew to make sure that the source material is taken seriously. Mm-hmm. And what we got from 2011's Rise of the Planet of the Apes, directed by Durand, and then when the follow-up sequels of Dawn and War of the Planet of the Apes, directed by Matt Reeves, is what I consider, for me personally, the best film trilogy ever made.
Yeah, it's basically right up there with the Back to the Future franchise. This is one that really, with Lord of the Rings. This franchise has found a way to consistently, make sure that the story itself is engaging. And that's something that is incredibly hard for most franchises, to accomplish. So with the Kingdom of the Planet of Apes, the story thus far is falling right after Caesar's saga. In this case, that after the events that took place in those original 3 films, we're now thrusted years afterwards and seeing the aftermath of
hundreds of years.
Exactly, hundreds of years, having to see what this world, this brand new world, has to offer. Where humankind is no longer the top of the food chain, and the dominant species that's on the planet Earth. No, it is now the world or the planet truly of these new apes.
And what the previous trilogy did was, in each installment, they would transition the perspective of the main focus perspective, the main character, from human to fully Caesar being the fully fresh main character, which is kind of very ambitious in a way.
Yeah, considering that's not necessarily something that most franchises are able to do. Star Wars, Star Trek still have this particular issue where non-human characters are harder for audience members to be able to sympathize with and be able to follow. Yeah, but that is something that is uniquely special for the Apes franchise. Maybe because of the fact that the creatures that we're dealing with are so uniquely like us.
But also very different as well. Because this film aims to walk that fine line on the real differences between man and ape.
Yeah.
And Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, because this is hundreds of years after the Caesar saga, new characters are populating. And before we really discuss these new characters, I want to say this about the story and plot right now. Um, Structurally speaking, after this film, despite the fact that this is like a follow up to the trilogy, the plot in which how it kicks off and the preceding events that take place is structurally very similar to War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, in the sense that you are following a group of individuals that are put into the situation of having to to run or deal with a running group of individuals that are hunting them, and one in the same instance of having to go back and try and find and save the rest of your group members. It's pretty much that exact same plot line, but
the difference is that is like instead of a human doing the cause, it's another ape.
It's just basically ape on ape crime. Even though again there's harm marks that is falling from previous entries in the series, I feel as though this one even more so follows in the footsteps of the original franchise, in the sense that now we are really trying to see what the world itself is like under their rule or under their dominance.
But they're still it's like still far off until we get to that point, because
it's pretty much still in the sense of the post-apocalyptic area, no longer, and not necessarily in the concept of the reconstruction aspect.
This is very much like at the time of this video it was stated that they envisioned these new films with including the Caesar trilogy as a 9-film saga. This new edition film might it's the start of probably this own little middle trilogy. Until we get to that point, into where it's more recognizable as the original, where their full-on civilization is fully made.
Listen, I'm looking forward to the to the point where we're going to be seeing apes all dressed up in high royalty garbs and stuff. I need to see that.
But right now, is thematically what is fresh and what was teased in War for the Plains, and it's like kind of continue on a little bit more fleshed out here, is the legacy of Caesar.
Yes. In this version, you definitely it's unique in the aspect of showcasing what is always usually the narrative in live post-apocalyptic stories, or stories that deals with civilization in itself, how the more things change, the more they stay the same. But in this case is the situation in which these apes are now following very closely in the footsteps that man has already laid down, where you had such a charismatic leader who has died, and now you're seeing how individuals are coping with that loss by utilizing their memory for their unique causes.
Yeah, mixed messaging and like trying to manipulate different manipulate the masses of what your interpretation of what this figure was trying to convey.
Yeah, which in itself can be a unique and interesting, plot point to delve into. But let's hope they don't overuse it or completely, for lack of a better term, bastardize how that concept could be.
But hopefully, in this follow up series, the characters continue to be developed. The show for fresher angles.
With that, we need to segue into talking about these individuals in this film. First and foremost, with one of our main, protagonists.
Yeah, the character of Noah, portrayed by actor Owen Teague. In a way, this is very similar to like a young adult film. Like where if the main character is just ape. Like the story, the plot is about him as essentially as a revenge story, because of, how we say about how War for the Planet of the Apes is basically very the plot of that film is basically this film as well. I would say what makes it different from from Caesar, played by Andy Serkis back in the day, is him discovering him discovering the world of new, the world of old of humans, and how's he like come his once naivete is finally blossoming into more awareness.
And that awareness is also triggered by the other unit character in this film, our human character that is falling alongside him.
Yeah, the character in which I'll say that what the apes call Nova.
This character of Nova is an individual whose story and development is usually left to be interpreted by characters that are surrounded under the mysticism of lore that has been passed down by others.
Now the character Nova is just like she has no bearings of another character in the Planks series in past entries, but I would say her addition in the story is the most unique aspect to Kingdom Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
One that is I don't want to discuss very much further because it's very spoilerific.
Yeah, her storyline is something that you really do have to go and watch in order to really appreciate what they've done with this character.
Yeah, and it's very what we can say, what we want to say, before without going into too much, is the unique angle with the humor perspective, and what basically showing the vast differences of how humanity is trying to cope into this new world where we're not the dominant species anymore. Another character that's worth discussing is the character of Raka.
I find myself really enjoying. And there was one thing that that the Apes movies basically really does is utilize the characters, at least the apes that are orangutans, in such a interesting plot point.
They're more they always portray the orangutans as the very wise and knowledgeable ape characters.
The individuals they usually know a little bit more than what others necessarily understand.
But he's also good source of humor, but
yeah,
who also like helps along the way past the teaching like the character of Noah on trying to navigate how the world has evolved since.
Mm-hmm.
And which is a sharp contrast with the main antagonist of this film. The character Proximus Caesar, played by Kevin Durand, who's a very underrated actor, by the way.
Honestly, if you've seen a lot of his work, you understand. You either already understand why he is very widely used throughout Hollywood, but at the same time, it's like I'm waiting for that role that's going to really just like explode him onto the scene with everybody appreciating just what he brings to the table.
It's just unfortunate that this character is not utilized as much in this film as what was marketing.
Mm-hmm.
He's very much the main figure of how the legacy of Caesar, in a lack of a better term, has been deconstructed.
Yeah,
such a weaponizing.
At the end of the day, his character is very much in the same ballpark of, or at least the same utilization of leaders that basically utilize holy or divine like individuals to their own benefits, and that is something that honestly could have been like a really major, huge plot point that I feel as though this movie should have really even dived even deeper into, but for the most part, the way to utilize for this character, even though I did enjoy it, does leave a little bit more to be desired. Only for the mere fact is because this character is not utilized enough.
Yes. For the rest of the production of this film, this is another step forward into how VFX has really helped evolve in a storytelling sense, in a way where the apes are the forefront main characters because of how realistically they are able to render out their emotions, the performances are continues to be highly captivated with the motion capturing of the actors that they're using. From this is also another example of how well this, despite the fact that this is like VFX, you can tell that they are filming on real locations. Like Wes Ball, who got his start with the Maze Runner films, worked like actually very small budget when he did those films.
And if you have seen them, you can definitely appreciate why how he's able to truly direct certain sequences and the telling of the story through the use of the environments themselves.
And with the much more bigger budget, with the Planet of the Apes, because of motion capture technology, he is he's so far has become a director that I admire because of how manageable.
Yeah.
Like he's very manageable with the resources that he's using. It's just that, unfortunately, on the whole spectrum of how this film, the plot story is concerned,
as big as it could have been, it's very small.
Like it almost feels like it shows elements of where the series can go, but it is like it's weighed down by the familiar plot structure of the previous entry.
So at the end of the day, the biggest sin I guess this film does commit is that yet again we still feel as though we're still at the beginning of the story, where at this point we should be at least in the middle or closer towards where the main climaxes are.
And it's also worth noting that the score by John Persano, even though that is not by no means Michael Giacchino's score that he did in the previous two,
to compete with.
He still continues to have his sound very what you expect from Planet of the Apes, from that very jungle-esque 1960s aesthetic.
Basically, from a movie that is not helmed by the original team that did the first two entries and the previous films, it still feels like it fits right in that same in the same franchise.
And for that, I'll say from right now, from what we can say in comparison to from the previous trilogy, but and how this film is trying to chart a new fresh path, it's still a good film.
I'm looking forward to more entries down the line. I'm really interested in what they're doing with this new take into the series. Just I can't wait to see this progress even further.
All right, and that's how we feel about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, if depending on how you goes, share, subscribe, comment below. What is your familiarity with the Planet of the Apes trilogy? Are you interested in whether or not you want to hear our thoughts on the previous Caesar trilogy as a whole?
Yeah, there's plenty of aspects to talk about for those films.
Yeah, and also checking us out if you want to continue communicating with us. We have our also social media outlets of Twitter, X, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
Because there's only so many hours left in the day to post stuff, and not enough time to actually get everything out.
Yeah. My name is Adam.
And I am Aaron.
This has been a Seeking Media production.
See y'all later.